Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, where I can say after ages, James, the world finally revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It does add a little bit of extra. Oof, there's a bit of money at the end of this, possibly, maybe. So
for a month or two.
Well, up until Overhaul is really the period to look at. So yeah, Planet SkyFF is back. We've got kind of 2 more days until Brentford Arsenal kicks off. So drafts, I would say, are pretty much getting there. At least 9 or 10 out of 11, I think, are fairly certain. And in addition to that, we're looking at a 3-week plan because we get the overhaul. We're forced to use our overhaul within 3 weeks. So it's quite a nice, focused thing to do as opposed to setting your FPL team up.
Yeah, anything's better than that, isn't it? Listen, for those who've listened to us before, welcome back. Hope you had a good summer. For those who are new and playing Sky for the first time, what Suj says is absolutely right. There are TV fixtures announced for September and October. Do not even begin to think about it. You know, you can have in your back in mind and go, oh, Arsenal got a great run from game week 4, or we should say match week 4. Don't even think about it. It's irrelevant because you're going to pick up information over these next 3 match weeks that are going to give you a 2-week period where you can then decide on a brand new team for match week 4. So don't even look beyond match week 3.
We're not going to reminder as well, like prices don't change. So it's not like you have to jump on somebody to get a price rise and all the rest of it. The prices don't change. If you think you're going to want them, you'll still be able to afford them then.
For the new players, we did an introductory pod last summer, and although some of the names we talk about on that podcast are obviously a little bit different, it's still extremely relevant. So if anybody's looking for that, give me a message. I'll send you the link. I might even link it in the bio possibly for where you can find it, or at least my tweet or something. I don't think it's worth going through all that again, particularly as said, it's a 3-week period. It's an in and out. It's quite straightforward. I think what we'll probably do is take you through a bit of a process on how about going to pick a team. And we have to start really with the single game days, of which there are only 2 to worry about. There's Brentford versus Arsenal this Friday, and it's West Ham versus Leicester on the Monday night in match week 2 on Monday, the 23rd. You want coverage from those 2 games. Let's start with Brentford Arsenal first, Suj. What are you thinking? There were a lot of choices, but limited choices.
And why?
Okay, why?
So the only 2 options so from a Brentford point of view, the only option that I was looking at was Ivan Toney, really. And there are 3 other attackers that I want, that I think will score more points over the 3-game week window than Ivan Toney. So I discounted Ivan Toney and I decided I'd go for who I consider to be the most nailed Arsenal defender at quite a decent price, to be fair, as well. And my big hope, my best case scenario is a clean sheet, passing bonus as captain this week, and then everything else is icing on the cake. No clean sheet, but passing bonus this week. And then if he gets passing bonus in one of the other games, that will do me. No clean sheets in the other 2, but passing bonus in one of them, that'll do me. So I've decided to skip Ivan Toney and go with the Arsenal defensive player in Ben White.
How many points would you want from Ben White between now and Overhaul?
Including the captaincy?
Obviously, yeah.
20.
Yeah, between 16 and 20, I think.
20.
You're absolutely right. If you hit the clean sheet and the passing tier on Friday night, it's job done. Anything against Chelsea and Man City would be a bonus. However, if it goes wrong, and there was obviously a little bit of unpredictability with new promoted team in terms of how much Arsenal will or will not have the ball in that game, we would expect them to dominate. I make you right. I would say passing tier would be borderline, I think, for Ben White in that particular game. Assuming he'll play at centre-back, I don't see any reason why he won't. I don't like the unknown in it, the opponent being unknown and knowing that it could easily be a 4-pointer. And then I'm not expecting it for anything from the last 2. and suddenly you're looking at perhaps 6-7 points for him from the 3 games, which would be shit. And that's why I'm going with even Tony. I think 7.9 million as a forward is the sort of price that we'll be considering after Overhaul. And I think what swings it is exactly what comes afterwards. If he fails, there's 2 good fixtures afterwards, Palace and Villa. And actually what the difference in price between White and Tony is 0.1. I totally get your reason in terms of you want 3 different forwards. And I think that's the main reason not to go with Tony would be, you have 3 other forwards who you definitely want to captain in other game days. I can accept that.
I don't want to captain. There's only one of my other forward, 2 of them I will captain, to be fair. So yeah, the third I wouldn't. But.
Do you know who the most owned player is at the moment from the 2 teams?
Pepe?
It's Bukayo Saka.
Okay.
Who I'm guessing won't start.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to be a lot of people scrambling around at deadline. And obviously, remember for the new listeners, in Sky, you've got till the first game of a game day to make changes. So you can assess the team lineups of Brentford, Arsenal. So I'm saying I'm going Tony. Listen, if he's not in the team, I'm going to make an alternative plan, aren't I? It's quite obvious. It might be that Ben White 0.1 cheaper would come into my thinking. I hope it emphasises to a lot of the new players. There are a lot of bad Sky players who just picked Bukayo Saka, I know, played for England in the summer. Second most owned is Ben White, 13%. Tony's ownership's actually been on the drop since we recorded on Patreon about 3 weeks ago. So he was about 20% owned then. He's now only about 12.5% owned. So he's actually on the drop.
Yeah, perhaps because he missed the last friendly, but even though Frank said that he's going to play, but yeah.
What of course it does mean is you really can punt this as a first game because there isn't a kind of it's not like Mo Salah's playing and the ownership's going to be massive. There isn't that sort of player. It's going to be quite spread by the looks of it. But I think the majority of seasoned Sky players, should we say, are probably going to go on Tony because of that, the 2 games afterwards. I think just to shout out a few alternatives, because they might work as enablers as well. Obviously, David Raya in goal. Brentford is cheap. Christopher Aguerd has joined at centre-back, 6.3. Rico Henry at left-back is also the same price. And Buemo is 7.2 in midfield. And there's a couple in midfield who probably will start as well that are cheap. The new signing on Yeka, who I think if Brentford play well would be an outside shout for man of the match, actually, 6.8. I'm not recommending him. Christian Norgard as well, if he's in the team, 6.2 in midfield. So if you're really struggling, this often happens in this game where we're worried about midfield players. In the case of Norgard, if I got him at 6.2, captained him, and he got me a tackle bonus, I'd be so happy with that. At that valuation. So there are alternatives to look at Brentford, but I think if you compare Mbeumo to Tony, it's 0.7 in it. The only reason to go with Mbeumo instead would be exactly what you're thinking is, I want 3 other powerful forwards. Arsenal, you could go Leno in goal, 7.1. Tierney is an alternative to Ben White, but I think because what you'd highlight,
too expensive.
I prefer Ben White, yeah. Pepe's the punt one that I think if Tony wasn't in the team, and he did miss Brentford friendly at the weekend, although manager Thomas Frank has said he will play. That there's no question about it in his opinion. Pepe at 8.6 is the punty one that I think if a player could go off, it's him. Aubameyang, you're not going near at 10.3.
No.
Smith Rowe at 7.5. I don't fancy personally. Again, looking at Smith Rowe versus, I think I'd prefer Smith Rowe over Mbeumo, but 0.4 between Smith Rowe and Tony. Just think about that for a moment. It just interestingly, Suj, the 3 forwards that you're going with, are you going to captain them all?
2 out of the
remaining
3
games. Who's the one that you're not?
Danny Ings.
Yeah, so this was kind of my choice as well, where I would like to have Danny Ings, and I'm probably not going to at the moment. My thinking on it was I've basically got 4 games of Tony versus 3 games of Ings.
Yeah, I think Ings is going to outscore Tony over those 3 versus 4 is my call on it.
I think it's close, but I'm also putting another 1.2 million in the bank.
That's true. Because I've cheaped out on a couple of players, but I'm taking the view that I'd rather 9 or 10 good players and 1 cheapo than compromises. So.
I'm going to preempt some of the questions that I'm fairly certain have been submitted to us. How would you feel about selling Ben White for another player straight away, immediately?
No.
What do you think of that as an idea? People want to pump Pepe, or I think particularly in the case of Arsenal players, they don't want to keep the Arsenal players for the games against Chelsea and Man City. What do you think about that?
Then find a different solution.
That's my opinion. So
yeah, find a different solution. It's three. There's enough good players, enough good prices that you don't need to make that sacrifice stroke compromise, whichever you want to call it. Doesn't fill me with I wouldn't do it. I'm happy to keep Ben White. There's every chance against Chelsea, maybe he might pick up at one of the passing or tackle tiers. City, he might pick up a tackle tier if their City are playing particularly well. I'm happy to keep Ben White, to be honest with you. So yeah, not that holds. Even a lot of people punting on Aubameyang for one game, thinking it's a real wild card. Not for me. It doesn't really work for me.
No, I mean, but that's the point, isn't it? If you went with an Aubameyang, we only have to go back to the previous summer in the restart period. He buried Chelsea and Man City in the FA Cup semi-finals and final. And listen, we're not buying Aubameyang, but I'm just saying, look, a player can do that. I would only be selling after night one if a player got injured. So in the case of a lot of us had started with Alisson 2 years ago. Friday night against Norwich, he got injured. Many of us went and bought Ederson the next day. Mm-hmm. And that would be the only reason I would sell a player. So I think if you've got a player there, you're desperate to get rid of night one, I'd be looking back on it and going, is this really the player I want? And again, correct. I think that's why it leans into Tony. Because I look at it after and go, okay, if he blanks, he blanks. I still got Palace and Villa. It's not the worst two fixtures. He's a budget player, right? 7.9 is cheap. And I think he'll be a consideration for us for a lot of this season because of that price.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on, before we do kind of Saturday the 14th, you need to make sure you've got some coverage really of West Ham, Leicester. What have you got from the two teams at the moment?
Antonio, Harvey Barnes, Daniel Amati.
So you got three.
Mm-hmm.
Marty's dirt cheap, isn't he? What price is he?
5.7 million.
So the Athletic are reporting at time of recording on Wednesday afternoon, the Athletic are reporting that a £15 million bid has been submitted from Leicester from Yannick Vestergaard.
Mm-hmm.
If they buy him, Vestergaard, I'm not saying this weekend necessarily, but Vestergaard will come in the team for him. You've possibly got one game out of it. So you're happy with that because it's so cheap and what it enables. So cheap.
Like, I just don't care.
I don't mind it as a strategy.
I'm just whatever. If I get 2 points out of it, I get 2 points out of it. But I like the rest of the team it's given me. So, yeah.
If they don't buy, he's probably the best enabler knocking about. It's worth saying as well, Johnny Evans is highly unlikely to play game week 1, but could be back for game week 2. So you got to know if you go down that route, you're possibly at a 10-player game.
Yeah.
Because if suddenly Evans comes back, you're not going to sell him, are you?
No.
You're just going to leave it.
I'll leave it. Yeah. Marty is like, he's the fodder. If there was ever a description of what he is doing in my 11, he's fodder. But Harvey Barnes or Antonio, I'll make that call on who of the two I go for that single game day based on the form that I see in the first week.
Yeah, I've got Barnes and Antonio as well at the moment. And it's worth saying, look, it's Wednesday afternoon. We're not saying our draft's 100% locked in. It just needs one change of team news and you can have 3 or 4 players change. But I think it'd be very close to this. I've got Ricardo Pereira as well, who, for the FPL listeners, I've talked up very much as an FPL asset over the last couple of days as well. I think for the first 3 games, he should be good. We know in this game he's a potential absolute tackle monster. And I also think there's a good possibility of attacking returns from their 3 games, Wolves, West Ham, Norwich. So that leaves me 3 prospects for that night, which I also quite like because Antonio and Barnes are both injury prone as well. So Ricardo Pereira as a third option. That's what I've gone with at the moment. That could be very easily become Siunchu. I think I need to think about that. Siunchu's 8.2. Siunchu is, Pereira's got the highest ceiling, but Siunchu's probably got a lock on passing tiers for at least a couple of the games. And over a shorter format, and there's probably not the risk to his starting place either. Even if Evans was fit and they bought Vestergaard, I think Siunchu would be fine for the first 3 games at least. That I might lean back to Siunchu actually. I think is a possibility. Others to consider from both. I think Cresswell, Soufal, 8.3, 8.1. I would prefer Soufal if you want to go down that route. Souček obviously had a storming season, but I don't think for this 3-game period, I wouldn't go for him at 8.2 over Ben Rama at 7.8, would you?
No, the other one that I was looking at in my midfield because I run out a bit of money was Ben Rama, but I didn't end up going with Ben Rama.
Leicester, Schmeichel as well in goal is reasonable, 7.1. I think I prefer Barnes. Barnes is 8.6, Tielemans 8.7, Maddison 8.8. I think I prefer Barnes.
Yeah.
Got the explosiveness, the highest shots here potential.
Yeah, it was a toss-up between Barnes and Tielemans for me. The reason I like Tielemans is because he can score points in different ways, tackle tier, maybe passing tier. Barnes is not in for either of those two. But from an attacking point of view, Barnes has got a higher ceiling if he picks up goals, assists, man of the match. And I ended up punting with the more attacking threat than the potential safe all-round point scoring.
And Vardy shouldn't be discounted. We think he's going to start up front on his own. That's a different Jamie Vardy to playing in a back four with a partner in Iheanacho up front. There's a good chance with Vardy you're only getting 70 minutes, but he does tend to start seasons well. We do tend to overlook him in fantasy games. I don't think he should be overruled, particularly if that's your captaincy solution for that night. But again, it's another one. Vardy 10.6, Antonio 8.8, 1.8 million difference. Antonio's a great price, really. As long as he with him, it's just about the fitness and stuff. Okay, that'll cover the 2 single game days. I think we should look at some of the premium options in terms of covering other captaincies. So Sunday the 15th, we've only got 2 games, which are Newcastle, West Ham, and Tottenham, Man City. Now, obviously, if you do go with West Ham assets, Antonio obviously offers up a captaincy option there.
I will be captaining Antonio.
Well, I think at the moment I'll be going Ruben Diaz.
I've got Diaz in my squad.
I'd be amazed if he doesn't hit passing tier against Tottenham, and I kind of like the guarantee of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a close call. I think Spurs will score in that game. Son running in behind and what have you. I think that he'll cause some problems. I think they'll beat you, but I think you might score in that game. So I'm going to avoid Ruben Diaz. And I think Antonio could easily score against Newcastle. So I'm going to go with Antonio. I'll also be able to see the team. I mean, it's unlikely that either of those two will not start. But I think I'm going to go with Antonio on that day.
In terms of ownership at City, Diaz is basically 20% owned. Jack Grealish is big, 36%, 9 million. I did speak to Johnny Pringle, our Man City correspondent, earlier today, and did say that he thought Grealish probably would start, but it does come with the probably. Someone who looks more likely to start is Riyad Mahrez at 9.8. It would interest me more to start with, having had the proper pre-season with Manchester City. He's only 5% owned, Mahrez. Foden, who I've heard reports could be out for 6 weeks, is in 10% of teams. De Bruyne's got to be doubtful. He's in 15% of teams. Gundogan, 9.3. I think I'd rather play for Mahrez. Cancelo's an interesting one at 9.5. John Stones, we don't know where we're at. Johnny said he thought that at the moment Nathan Ake would probably start on Sunday. So that's why for me, I mean, I think it's a real conversation for game week 4, Stones versus Diaz then, because what Stones 9.2.
But not for now.
For now, I want the security of paying the extra. And I think there's a lot of questions with them offensively. I think if I was to buy an offensive one, for me, it would be Mahrez. Diaz I'm going to start with, and I think that would likely be my captain for that Sunday. The following Sunday, the 22nd, we've got Arsenal-Chelsea. So again, if you've got Arsenal assets this Friday, but that's not ideal versus Chelsea. You've got Tottenham at Wolves, but I think Manchester United at Southampton looks much more appealing at the moment, especially thinking Vestergaard might be out the door. They have bought Adam Armstrong. I don't believe there is a Sky price for Armstrong yet, but Southampton players are not something you want to start with, I don't believe. United, Bruno's got to go in, isn't he, Suj?
Bruno is in.
Yeah. 11.8 million. He's in around about 43% of teams at the moment. And I intend to captain Bruno against Wolves on Sunday the 22nd and against, Southampton on the 22nd, on Wolves on Sunday the 29th. Not intending to captain him this Saturday, but yeah, Bruno's going to be difficult to pass up. Have you got any other
Correct.
United players?
No, none.
I do.
Who have you gone with?
At the moment, I've got Harry Maguire in at 9.4. And the reason I like going with the second United player is that Sunday, the 22nd. If I go no Arsenal, and I'm likely to go no Tottenham, that would leave me just Bruno. If something did happen to Bruno, and I don't want to use the transfer, I'd like to have that second option there.
Right.
So I like Harry Maguire as a backup. I think the fixtures they've got, not Leeds, but the other two, Southampton and Wolves, is very capable of picking up pass and tearing as well. So I've gone Harry Maguire as a second United player. I would go him at 9.4 over Wan-Bissaka at 9.2 and Shaw at 9.0 under this format to start with.
I don't suffer from that problem because I've got Ben White sitting there from Arsenal. So I've got a second player potentially that I could captain on that day.
It's not what you want to do with it, though, is it? Let's be honest.
No, but these are now we're worrying about ifs and buts and injuries and all that kind of thing.
It's very true, though. Remember when I ended up with when Chelsea played Arsenal towards the end of the season and ended up getting backed in where I only had Rob Holding.
Yeah.
And Arsenal went there and won 1-0 and he got the clean sheet. So in that case, yeah, obviously that's what you do. Shaw's 27% owned, Maguire 20%, Wan-Bissaka about 8%. Personally, if you can, I would pay the extra for Maguire to start with. Tottenham obviously an alternative for that Sunday and the Sunday after. So Tottenham go to Wolves on the 22nd, home to Watford on the 29th. The only players really you can consider here, I think, are Højbjerg at 8.5. Feels expensive. He is a regular for hitting pass and tears, but if he plays the position that he played against Arsenal on Sunday, it's very different to what he played last season. And he won't hit passing numbers in the same way. But that's the only game he's played that in so far. So I don't know if that's going to stick or not. Sonny at 10.8, isn't it? Are you in or not, Suj?
No.
So no Spurs for you.
Because he's a forward. That's the problem. I've got Antonio Ings and Mo Salah. So can't have a fourth. Simple as that. Like I've got no problem with Sonny post Overhaul. But in the immediate three, I'd rather have the others.
Kane's 12 million. He's in 28% of teams. You just cannot go there, in my opinion. I'd be gobsmacked if he has any involvement on Sunday.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play at all till the transfer window shuts. But all signs are he is going to resume full training with the team this Friday. I'd be stunned if he's involved for Sunday. So Kane's got to be a no-go. But I see a lot of people debating. One move I keep seeing being mentioned, Suj, is to buy Kane/Son, so if Kane is available, on Sunday the 22nd. And the idea behind that would be to buy him for Mo Salah. So you obviously, if you're planning Salah to Kane, you need to leave at least 0.1 in the bank. Although I think if you get there, you'll find you're more likely to go to Son. The thinking with that being is you get two captaincies of Liverpool. You miss Son or Kane versus Man City, and then you've got two captaincies of Tottenham. What do you think of that as a move?
We value a transfer as if you get 15 points out of a transfer potentially, it's worth it. So if you're now getting 2 extra matches because you've got 2 captaincies out of a player and they return in both of those, it's worth it.
Well, I think for most people, it wouldn't be 2 captaincies as well. I think it would be 1.
2 additional captaincies.
Well, no, I think it would be 1 because obviously on the 22nd, you've got Bruno's at Southampton. And let's say it's Son you end up going for. Son at Wolves. You captain Bruno under this format, don't you?
Yeah, I don't like this early moves just because we don't know how teams are going to set up. We don't know how they're going to settle. I feel like you could make a decision on a move after the first round of matches, and teams will play slightly differently in the second or third whilst players are coming back, the ones that return late from the Euros and what have you. It's very hard for me to get behind a strategy that doesn't suit my playing style. So I can completely understand why people are doing it. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. So I feel like I'm being very negative on it. It's perfectly fine. And people that want to play that way, play the game that way. This perhaps even more than FPL, you have to be a little bit more individual in your style. For me, I am setting the team up to get through the entire first 3 weeks using no transfers if I can help it in any way whatsoever. The only circumstance I can see myself making a move is if one of my players gets injured in the first week. If they get injured in the second, I'll just leave it. And unless it's really a lot of money like Salah, maybe I'd consider it. So if they got injured and I got 2 more games, I think I'd do it. But other than that, I'm only going to make moves in terms of disasters. So when you ask me, what do I think of that move? I mean, it's not stupid. If you think there's a high ceiling in that player and you're going to put the armband on him, you need to find the right times to get those gains. I don't know if the first 3 weeks is a good time to be making bold moves.
I think that's a FOMO on the Tottenham-Watford fixture. And I think, obviously, people don't just want to buy on the last day, so they want to fit in the extra fixture. I think there's a couple of points. One, in this case, it sounds like the player people are thinking to sell it is Salah, who, yes, does have Chelsea at home on Saturday the 28th. It's not like he can't return against Chelsea at Anfield. I also feel like those who make the transfer need to get more than what they believe they want to get in terms of 15 extra points or something. Because I think you also need to factor in, you are going to take the captaincy off a very highly owned Bruno Fernandes on that final day against Wolves as well. Because as it stands, if Kane is not available by then Bruno is going to be the most popular captain that day. Be more popular than Son. So not only are you bringing Son in, you're taking the armband off Bruno against Wolves, and we think Wolves will be very different to the Wolves we've experienced previously. So I mean, I have no issue with Captain Bruno on that final day. Personally, it's not a move for me. Where would you stand, Suj, in terms of at which point over the 8 game days, if you've got an injury, would you no longer make a move to say, right, well, there's nothing in this for me? 2
criteria. I would want at least 2 more games. So if the players played 1 or 2 games and whoever I'm moving to still got 2 games left, I would consider making the move. And the second thing is who are we talking about? So one of my big budgets players, Salah, Fernandes, Trent, Diaz, I can move to another player that's got a high ceiling. So I would consider it. If it's one of my cheaper players, a Marty, Dallas.
You just said you'd fuck a Marty after one game, basically.
I couldn't care less. So it's a twofold. One, do I have 2 more games left in the new player that I'm going to? And the second thing is it a big budget player where I can go and buy someone premium that's got a high ceiling, or am I just replacing a mid-tier player with another mid-tier player? If it's the latter, I wouldn't do it. Those are the 2 criteria I would use about burning a transfer in the first 3 weeks.
I've definitely realised someone's going to chop up a clip of me saying you'd fuck a Marty after one game as well. For myself personally, I think, the Saturday the 21st would be the cut-off to think, okay, so like if Salah did get injured on Saturday the 21st, yes, I probably would buy, as it stands, Heung-min Son on Sunday the 22nd, for example.
He's got 2 games and it's a high ceiling player. Yeah.
If I lost Ruben Diaz on Saturday the 21st, yes, I think I would buy a replacement on Sunday the 22nd. I think if I lost a player on Sunday the 22nd, I wouldn't bother because I've already got 3 players from West Ham, Leicester. So it's a naughty one where would I, let's say I did have Son, for example, and he got injured on Sunday the 22nd, but then buying Vardy on the 23rd when I've already got really good coverage in the game, and then putting the armband on him out of, like, because psychologically I'm affected, or because I've bought him, I've got to make it worthwhile. I better stick the armband on him now as well. I think I'd leave it. I think Saturday 21st would be the cut-off. And like you, I'm only intending to make moves if an important player gets injured. So that said, I think for me, if any player gets injured on the first 2 days, I'd probably make a move. So if they got injured on the 13th or the 14th, I would look to probably add another Man City player on the 15th. Depending on the value of the player who obviously got injured. We should also talk about, Suj, Liverpool. Because obviously Salah has some good fixtures. He'll be very popular, obviously, on Saturday the 14th. He'll also be very popular on Saturday, the 21st. Mo Salah in for you, I take it.
He is in.
42% owned at the moment. I'm surprised by that number because I think we used to, when Mo Salah's a hot property, we used to 90% ownership for the new players.
Yep.
Don't be frightened when you see top 1K 90% owned by certain players later in the season. You will see that. That's a common thing that will happen. Salah in for me, but probably no other Liverpool. I suspect you have got Trent.
I have got Trent. However, so there are two players in my squad that I would consider are cheapos. One is Stuart Dallas and one is Amati. I don't have enough to get Amati to Tsimikas. If I did, I would have got Tsimikas as a second or third Liverpool asset, second Liverpool defender. I am very open to ditching Trent if I feel like I'm not happy looking at Amati or Dallas anytime in the next 2 days, and I need to find money to make one of those two a better player. And it's very likely to be one of those two. I would downgrade. There's so many options, like even Harry Maguire that you mentioned, or Luke Shaw. These are all priced at 9s, mid-9s. Trent is 10.5. So if I want to find the million, I'm not convinced that Trent will stay. But at the moment, he's in.
Okay. It's interesting that you've got doubt about it. I presume that's part, obviously, influenced by Robertson's injury.
No, it's just about money. Like, it's 3 weeks, right? If it was a long-term decision, Trent would be in. If I knew I'm making a decision for 7, 8, 9 weeks, he'd be in. But it's 3 weeks. And so when we get to Overhaul, I can just get him back. If I'm missing for 3 weeks, it's very different to missing him for 10, 11, 12 game weeks. So it's all about money, really, for me. But I think Dallas could do okay. And I think Amati, because Dallas, interestingly, is a midfielder now, but even if he plays at left back, he might get tackled here. So the way he can still score points in lots of different ways. You haven't got the clean
sheets coming with it now, though.
No, that's true. But then he could play the second and third game in the midfield and I'll get the attacking returns or whatever. So that Dallas for me, I think it was on the Hub pod, Liam Dorian figured out that had he been a midfielder, he would have scored about 160 points, Dallas, in the game last year. That's all right for 7.5 million. Of
course it is.
So with that in mind, I think Dallas is okay. So I'm not overly thinking that I will downgrade Trent, but if I get itchy feet and I think I do need money to beef up Dallas or Amati, Trent, where I'll go to find that money.
Did you have any thoughts about Big Virgil van Dijk?
Nah.
We think at the moment that
not pre-overhaul.
There's too much doubt about if he's going to play game week 1.
Correct. Not pre-overhaul.
Again, for the new guys, this is a free game week period. You don't have to think long term. It's not worth taking the chance. Obviously, if you go for him and he starts at Norwich, if he plays at Norwich, I'll regret not having him. No doubt about it. Because he's 10.2. You can put 12 points straight on the board from him in terms of his passing tiers in the first 2 games and stuff. And then you put clean sheets on top. He's absolutely worth it, even with possibly no captaincy. But we think at the moment that he probably won't start at Norwich. It's not worth the gamble. At 10.2, he's going to be an asset this season, isn't he? There's no doubt about that. Oh, yeah.
When we get to Overhaul, massively in my consideration. Pre-Overhaul, not
in
worth
terms of finding money, have you thought about Tsimikas?
Yeah.
He's 6.6.
Yeah. A lot.
And we think that Robertson will probably be back for match week 4. It's perfect for this.
Yeah, he's very much in my thoughts. Like, do you know, ironically, instead of I've got a Marty and I've got a 0.5 in the bank, that gives me 6.2. I'm just so tempted to find a way to get that extra 0.4 to get Tsimikas in.
We can look at that once we know all your team. I think Tsimikas, I don't think I can rule it out.
Yeah, me
neither. I
neither.
don't think I can rule it out at 6.6. It's probably a no from me because I quite like what I've got in the rest of the team. But at the moment, it's probably a no. It's probably just Salah for me. I'm not, unlike, say, that one with Maguire covering Bruno Fernandes, there are obvious other games that cover Salah. So in match week 2, Obviously, when Salah plays Burnley, Ruben Diaz has got Norwich at home. So if something did happen there, I've got the alternative for the captaincy ready. In terms of attacking teams with good fixtures, I think there are two teams really to highlight. One is Villa. We've got the best 3 fixtures. Have you got any Villa players, Suj?
Well, we spoke about Danny Ings. So I have Danny Ings and I have Emi Martinez in goal.
Emi Martinez, for me, was just about the easiest pick for this. Again, overhaul time being perfect to have Villa players and ditch. When I did my first draft, whenever the game launched, I think I had 4 Villa players. I'm down to just Martinez.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. But I think my team is better off for it. Buendia, I think, definitely would have been in for me, but now there's a doubt on the injury. Watkins was obviously enough doubt because of Danny Ings coming in. I think I would have rather paid the extra. Grealish was obviously in there, has now gone to Man City. The defensive guys, Target is 7.9, Mings 7.8, Konsa 7.5. I think there would probably be a slight preference for Target. But I think if you want to go for one and it's money orientated, just go for the cheapest in Ezri Konsa. Then the problem with Villa players is they're not likely to hit passing tiers. Even with the fixtures they've got, Watford, Newcastle, Brentford, they probably won't hit passing tiers. So to kind of sum that up for you, let's say you go for Konsa and let's say Villa keep 2 clean sheets out of 3. And I think that's possibly a bit ambitious, maybe. Let's say Konsa then, no attacking return, 7-7 and a 2, 16 points. Well, we've already spoken that Ben White might actually get you 20 on Friday night. And that's the sort of thing you need to kind of think about in your mind in terms of your decision making. And Martinez is cheaper than all of them. So yeah. I think in this format, to go for a Villa defender but not have Martinez in goal doesn't make sense to me over this 3-game period. So Martinez, he's only in like 20% of teams at the moment, Martinez. I'm really surprised. 231 points last year.
It's fantastic.
Massive. To give you perspective, Mo Salah 248. So Martinez a no-brainer to start in goal. And have you got any Brighton players, Suj?
No.
So I
up until I really went in and trying to nail down my draft yesterday, Webster had been in for a little while. Dunk, just because I thought the price differential, like I think Dunk is the better pick, but I couldn't afford Dunk. So literally, I think Webster is a perfectly good alternative. You know, where you talk about, can this player cover it? I think for the price differential, I really felt Webster could cover Dunk. Those are the only 2 that were anywhere close to consideration for me. But no, I don't.
They've got 3 good fixtures, I think, particularly defensively. Burnley away, Watford at home, Everton at home. Dunk, I think, across the 2 games last year, I know he scored at Burnley. He definitely got a 9-pointer at home to Everton. Obviously didn't play Watford. But I think if you went Lewis Dunk, you'd be wanting in excess of 20 points, even with no captaincy, quite possibly. Because there's every chance to pick up the passing tier in all 3. And at 8.2, he's an absolutely brilliant price. And you know, obviously, he did very well for me last year, Suj. I don't have him at the moment. I've gone Webster because I just think, again, that balance of the extra 1.2 million in the squad. Can Webster get the goal that Dunk might get over 3 games or so? I think the answer is yes. Dunk is more nailed to get the passing tiers because when they play a back 3, he sits a little bit deeper and stuff. So there's always a chance that Webster won't hit the passing tier and Dunk will. But I think the 1.2 saving and what I can get elsewhere, bearing in mind what I've got at the moment is maxed out, 0, nothing in the bank. Webster for me at the moment, but I wouldn't rule out Pereira becoming Siyunshu, becoming Dunk between now and deadline. I think that's a possibility. So definitely not ruling Dunk out. Sanchez obviously offers a cheaper alternative to Emi Martinez at 6.5. I see quite a lot of debate about Webster versus Veltman. Under this format, I would definitely go Webster, in my opinion. Because if they go back to a back 4, Webster's then probably a lock for the tiers, whereas Veltman may struggle, for example. So I think Webster over Veltman. If Dunk is affordable, pay the extra. But if it's not, Webster at 7 million, it's a brilliant price. And actually, it's only that Webster's price being so brilliant, I think takes away from that. If Webster was 7.8, for example, I definitely would reshape this and have Lewis Dunk in, for example.
Correct.
Definitely. They've got 3 really good starting fixtures, Brighton, I think, for the defensive assets. And I wouldn't rule out the double up. Interestingly, I think for those looking to attack blanket defenses, and we've seen this before where people want sort of 3 or 4 treble ups, quadruple ups defensively, Brighton's become difficult because obviously Lamptey's out injured. Dan Burns also unavailable. So you can only really go to max 3 anyway. Veltman, Webster, Dunk. I think some will go down that route. You obviously can go all 5 Villa. You could go Cash, Mings, Conser, Target, and Martinez. And obviously, if they keep 3 clean sheets, it's gold. But I think you'd be put off by there's no passing tiers in it at all. The other one that might be considered is Manchester United, I think. The blanket there of going like Maguire, Shaw, Wan-Bissaka. I don't think you can go more than the 3 because Raphael Varane's not official yet. But once he's up to speed, he'll come in at some point. Lindelof is never more than 1 back strain away from an injury anyway. So I think it would be a max treble up. I think a Liverpool treble up at the moment looks too dicey with question marks on who will play. So I think those would be the ones people are probably looking at blanket defense-wise. And I don't mind that as a strategy early on.
No.
It's not something I'm doing, but I don't mind it as a strategy. Some will definitely do it.
So how are you lined up 1 to 11 as it stands? Your goalkeeper's Martinez, same as mine.
So, I mean, there's only one player in my squad at the moment who I haven't mentioned, and that's Rafinha, who difficult first game at Manchester United. Obviously, I like the last 2, Everton, Burnley, and it also offers me another captaincy alternative on the final Sunday. Rafinha is by no means locked in my team, but that's the one I've got in there at the moment. I think, for example, if Tony didn't play for Brentford, I could see myself going with Norgard instead, for example, smashing Webster up to Dunk and possibly going up from Pereira as well. Those sort of kind of changes. Perhaps obviously going 5 at the back, for example. So Rafinha's in at the moment. He's by no means a certainty. Can I take you through, Suj, the players who are owned by 10% or more that we haven't talked about?
Please do.
There's not many. Mendy and Alisson in goal. Ben Chilwell, Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Jadon Sancho, and Patrick Bamford. That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the only other players owned by more than 10%.
All smack of players that did well in the Euros, or people are looking at last season's performance and not looking at the fixtures in the first 3 weeks, which a lot of people do.
Yeah. So that's my team. Who else you got?
So I'm Martinez in goal, Trent, Diaz, Ben White, and Amati at the back. Fernandes, Barnes. I just noticed that I have that $500,000 in the bank. That turns Stuart Dallas into Jack Harrison. So
Okay.
Fernandes, Barnes, Harrison, Salah, Antonio, Ings.
All covered, I take it.
All covered, and I feel that's fine. Amati is a weak link in there, but then you know what? I think Antonio, Ings could do really well in the first 3. Cover off Tony. I like Barnes, Fernandes, Harrison. I feel my team is fine. And Trent is that player that could hurt some people.
I think anticipating problems is a good skill in this game. And I think it's prudent to have at least 2 options on every day. That's part where I spoke about the Harry Maguire influence. Obviously, I've got 3 West Ham and Leicester at the moment. I don't need 3, but I think I want, to be honest, right now, if you said, what's the score of that game? I find that quite difficult to judge. So like you, I think West Ham, Leicester, I'll make a decision once I get there. If you had to pin me down right now, I would just go Antonio. But I think it's prudent to have a couple of options. Obviously, Brentford and Arsenal, you don't need 2 options because you'll see the team on the opening day. You know who you're going to captain factually. But I think on the other days, like, be cautious of that. The days where Bruno's playing, just check. Have you got another option just in case? And again, in the case of Bruno, if we know on Saturday 21st that he's not going to play against Southampton on Sunday 22nd, we'll probably buy another player, don't get me wrong. But I think it's prudent just to have a little check and make sure that you've got something there. The one thing to say about that is they are opening kickoff on Sunday, the 22nd as well. So if the team did drop and suddenly he's not in it, you have got alternatives. But if you're stuck in a 4-3-3 like I am, where are you actually going to go and spend it? You're taking a gamble on a Chelsea player suddenly at Arsenal and then they go to Liverpool the week after? You're going to someone like Højbjerg or something? Are you buying Jadon Sancho if he's in the team? That would be the one, I guess. Sancho is a midfielder, isn't he? I'm certain that he is.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he is, but I will check that.
He's 10.3, Jadon Sancho. I know that. Must be a midfielder.
Indeed.
Yeah, but they do like to make players like him forwards in this game, don't they? So I guess
Jadon Sancho is a 10.3 midfielder.
Okay, cool. Just want to, before we do some questions, shout out a couple of enablers. So Suj has got one in Daniel Amati. I'm kind of going none, although I'd argue Adam Webster is a little bit. I think cheapest playing starting defender. There is one cheaper than Amati we can expect at the weekend. And they don't have a horrific first three. He's Truce de Kong of Watford.
I thought you were going to say Omar Bamidele at Norwich.
You don't want that though, because that could be minus points.
Yeah. Whereas
at least Truce de Kong at 5.5, do you know what? It could get you a clean sheet. You might get 10, 12 points out of him in the 3 games. Not impossible. He's one. Japhet Tanganga is 6.6, which might be interesting because it looks like he's going to play right back now, but you should be aware Tottenham are trying to buy a right back. And I think, again, you look at that 0.4 for Webster. I'd go up to Webster. Midfield, I mentioned Norgard of Brentford, 6.2. Another Watford player, Atebo, who's 5.7, could play in midfield. You're going to get no attacking returns out of him. He's a sitting midfielder. And up front, I don't know if you noticed this, Suj, another Watford player, Emmanuel Dennis, he's 5.5 million. Now, I wouldn't put him starting at more than about 30% or so, but it is possible. And if you want to go down the route and have a 10-player game, there's a reasonable case to say, okay, yeah, I'll go 4-3-3 and I'll leave a forward out. But I don't see where you'd only want 2 forwards at the moment, because I feel like some of the good captaincies.
So many good ones, yeah.
And to be honest, affordability, Tony, Antonio, Ings, they're really good prices. So they're the popular ones. I don't think I overthink it. The best advice I give the new players is, for this period of 3 games, do not take chances.
Correct.
And that means, obviously, especially game week 1. But if you take me with Ricardo Pereira, I think the closer it gets, I might end up taking him out because there's a little bit of fear. I'm pretty sure he starts game week 1, but game week 3 is 2 weeks away. And I know that Timothy Castagne is going to be lurking in the background. And that's probably enough of a concern that might make me move that, for example. Go with a lot of players. Don't be frightened to go with centre-backs, because these are the guys who can perform really well. If you've got an FPL mindset on, you're probably thinking, well, I want the fullbacks, the attacking returns. Listen, those guaranteed passing tiers in this game are absolutely brilliant. And that's why some of these centre-backs are so highly sought after and expensive in many cases as well. So if you're sitting there going, oh, Veltman, Webster and stuff like that, honestly, go Webster is my opinion.
So what you're saying there leads quite well into the questions, James, in terms of don't take stupid risks and keep it safe, because a lot of the questions that I've had a scan through are about risk analysis. Is it worth it? Is this worth the risk? So I reckon we're going to be able to answer a lot of these very straightforward.
They'll probably all be no.
With a no. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, honestly.
For example, let's get into it, shall we? And let's see how easily a lot of these are to answer. Dragos SkyFF. What to do with Lukaku? Nothing. There's depending on when he signs and comes in the game. He's not even going to play.
I can't tell you anything. Chelsea have organised a friendly against Weymouth on Sunday. Now, Weymouth are obviously a non-league side, but the suggestion is that, and this is what when we had Ted on Correspondent Week last week, we said, be very careful with the team against Villarreal. We may not even give clues for the Crystal Palace game. So there's a suggestion. There's quite a few players who might be involved tonight, play half hour or so, and won't be involved at all on Saturday. And they'll play that game on the Sunday as part of their kind of building up to fitness regime. So, I mean, in terms of Chelsea, who could you consider at the moment? Rudiger, if you like. I don't mind Rudiger as a shout at 9 million. If you really fancy him to do well, I think he would be the standout one. Havertz you can consider. That's it for me. Like Mason Mount and that can't go near it at the moment, in my opinion.
We also have a question from really can't pronounce that, mate. It's not even a name. Do you think
it's not even a name?
It's not. It's like Shed Hubba. It's like loads of letters in a.
That might be his name.
Please tweet if it is. Do you think Tsimikas is worth the risk? That's a yes.
Discussed.
But it's down to then the rest of your squad and what you're doing with the money.
I think that's why I won't go with it, because there is enough doubt. And actually, again, 6.6, brilliant. Webster's 7. And actually, there might be nothing between them in terms of the points return. I know the only way Webster don't play 3 games for Brighton is if he gets injured. And they've got 3 good fixtures as well.
Rob, FPL Advice on YouTube says, do you think VVD plays the 3 games before Overhaul?
No.
There we go.
I don't think he'll start Saturday.
Me too.
I think the plan is to get him ready for Chelsea. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays against Burnley.
Rob says he thinks so.
I think the plan is to get ready for Chelsea.
Rob says he thinks so, but the majority of predicted lineups have gone Matip and Kanate.
Yeah.
Not for me. Yeah, I wouldn't take the risk on VVD at that price pre-Overhaul. It's only 3 weeks. If you miss a few points, all well and good, you'll be able to just jump on him in the Overhaul. Ron, Rudiger versus Suj is a pre-Overhaul pick. Which would you go for?
Suj are more likely for me, obviously cheaper as well. I'm sure Rudiger's 9, so is that right?
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Suj I know is 8.2, and he's arguably 12th man for me at the moment. He's very close. Suj I might go with Suj for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Me too, because even changes around the other defenders that play, Suj will still play. Rudiger is 9, and he is a defender, James.
When you look at it and you think for later in the season, and we shouldn't say it now, but we'll say it now anyway, Rudiger, Stones, Van Dijk, Maguire maybe even, that could be, and add Dunk, 5-3. So, yeah.
We have a question from In Your Dreams, but we've answered it. What's your thoughts on Tony versus White versus Xhaka and ESR for the first 3 games?
Probably haven't helped you because we're going different.
Brit in New York, do you think double Brighton defence with Dunk and Webster is risky?
No.
Now, risky is the interesting word. Like, what are you? What
it's risky in terms of like, are they good enough? But actually, no. I think it's very reasonable, and I might do that myself.
If they picked up passing tier, both of them picked up passing tier in 2 out of the 3. And they picked up 1 clean sheet. So 1 clean sheet, 2 passing tiers for both of them over 3 games. Not a bad return for their prices.
I'd be surprised if Dunk didn't pick up passing tier in 2 of those 3 games.
And I'd be surprised they didn't pick up 1 clean sheet in 1 of those 3 games. Yep. So I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's very
and
very
that's why, as I said, Pereira might become Sienshu, becomes Lewis Dunk. It's possible for me as well. You know, I'm going to have a pull for Dunky as well after how well he did for me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it in a lot of the FPL pods, how previous bias sucks you in. These are a little more difficult to answer the next 2, James, but I'm going to leave them to you because you'll have a better handle. Which 3 defenders are most likely to hit passing tier in the first 3 games?
Which 3? What, as in all 3?
No, so as in pick 3 defenders that are most locked for passing tier. Ruben Diaz?
Obviously just for the 3 games. Yeah, Ruben Diaz has to be. I think Dunk, honestly. And I think with what the fixtures are at the moment and unknown on Liverpool, I would say Harry Maguire.
Harry Maguire, Lewis Dunk, and Ruben Diaz. Is there any good midfield, mid-price passing tackle bonus guarantees? Money Mace would like to know.
If they were guarantees, it'd be in everyone's team. Unfortunately. I mean, Højbjerg, for example, it was great for passing and quite a bit of tackles last year. As I said, if he plays like the position he played against Arsenal, which is basically as a pressing right-hand side of a 3 on Sunday, you ain't going to hit passing tiers anymore. It's all going to go through Ollie Skip instead. So to throw a name out there, Ollie Skip maybe for passing and tackle, but nailed, No chance. Ollie, I think he's only about 6.8, I want to say, Suj. Oliver Skip.
I can have a look for you.
I tell you what, it wouldn't be the worst one to start with, but even with Ollie, like I think Ollie will play against Man City on Sunday, but then Lo Celso might come in for him, and then Højbjerg goes back essentially. So
6.8
risk. He is 6.8 Oliver Skip. Yeah, he's one to keep an eye on. If he locks down a place this year, honestly, Oliver Skip loves a tackle. Pass is simple. He'll play the position similarly to how Højbjerg played it if he plays that position, but he's got to get hold of the shirt. Through pre-season, he's got hold of it. Like he's ahead of Harry Winks and stuff in the pecking order, but there's still players to come back like Lo Celso. I know Tottenham are trying to potentially buy in that area, and Ndombele at the moment's not being picked. What's happening with him? So again, it's one, once you overview it, becomes too much of a risk. And Diddy, I think, no. A little bit too much for me.
We've covered off a lot of the other player-related questions. In terms of
Rodri,
AMB.
by the way. Oh. What price is Rodri? It was massive, though.
It's quite expensive, from my understanding.
I think it's high 8 something. I want to say Rodri.
I'm going to say it's 8.7.
8.7. It's not the worst pick. I mean, to be honest, if you look at Rodri and go those 3 games, if he plays them all, you're probably looking at 15 points. Are you happy?
Which is reasonable.
Of course it is. Are you happy with that? And you know there's every chance he could get pulled out against Norwich as well, right?
Not hugely
Norwich, you might not
happy,
play.
I'll be honest with you.
No. I think you want to... It's interesting because in one breath we're saying, look, don't take the chance, play it quite straight down the middle and stuff. And yet with someone like that, we're almost looking at... Like if I compare Harvey Barnes is what, 8.6, Suj? I mean, I expect Harvey Barnes to outscore 15 points in the 3 games, would be my opinion. So
yeah, I can easily see Fernandinho playing in there one of the games if you wanted to ease Rodri back or what have you. So,
but if you're someone that absolutely wants the guarantees, if Rodri plays 3 games, he'll almost certainly hit tier 2 passing in all of them with the opponents that City have got.
The last kind of question, James, which a few people have asked, which is not A or B, is what are we doing with our second teams? What are your thoughts at the moment? Because I actually haven't decided what I'm doing with my second team. So obviously there are a number of options, but one is hedge your bets and go with slightly different players and then pick the ball up with whichever one does particularly well. So put a Mane in instead of a Salah, get a Ben Rama to cover an Antonio, and so on and so on. And option B is same again, exactly the same team, and then see how that progresses. And then later in the season, diversify to hedge your bets when you know where you stand.
The one I don't really like that I see people do, and I understand why they do it, but I don't really like is you see like an A team and then you see a B team. And what I mean by that is so
slightly lesser players.
Well, it's not even that. So they just go with all the differentials. So let's just say, for example, let's pick Salah, Fernandes, Barnes, Rafinha as examples. So rather than just going Mane, Fernandes, Barnes, Rafinha, they'll go Mane, Pogba, Maddison, Harrison. So it's like all completely different.
You're reliant. That's what I mean. They're all,
and of course,
reliant on all the differentials.
Then you're going to have a mix of both. I like the ones where I see kind of just the 1 or 2 changes. I like that. What I'm going to do with mine, I'm going to try it again, which I tried last year, but when it had to go off piece because of the COVID stuff, is 1 player per team and only transfers if they're enforced.
Right.
I.e. if I've got no captaincy coverage or injuries.
Have you set that team up? Not yet.
Yeah. You want me to tell you what it is?
Tell the listeners. I think they'd quite enjoy listening to it.
You have to load it up now, don't I? I can't tell you. I mean, it's not far from my own. So, I mean, back 5, 8, it's nearly exactly the same.
Okay. While you put it up, shout out to Dan Cox, who says he is challenging me to a top 1,000 finish this year. I'm going to do higher than that, Dan. I reckon top 250. I'm aiming for top 250, and I'll be happy with top 500 this year. And Nikki Kassam says, what's the equivalent of a top 10K and a top 100K finish in Sky FPL equivalent. So top 10K would be what, top 100?
No, I think actually, yeah, probably.
And top 10K would be
Top
top
100 or
1,000.
top 200. One or the
Top
other.
200. And top 100K would be top 2,000, something like that.
That second team of mine last year did finish in the top 1,000 in the end. But as I said, it had to go off track because of injuries and COVID. So the only differences to my first team with this team is instead of Maguire and Pereira, I've got Rudiger and Luka Dean.
So Martinez, Luka Dean,
only changes.
Rudiger, Diaz,
Webster, Barnes, Fernandes, Rafinha, Tony, Antonio, Salah. So it's one player from 11 teams. And it's interesting, there's no Spurs player in there, no Arsenal player in there.
Yeah.
Says a lot about them two at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah. So James's strategy is that I haven't actually decided what I'm going to do with my second team. My current probable course of action is going to be set it up exactly the same as my first team and mirror it.
You know, there's a week you'll forget. You'll be like, yeah, James, I just remember the deadline. Oh, shit, I forgot to do my second team.
Well, you never know how that may work out. Sometimes the transfers don't work out. So it could be a positive as much as a negative. Unless, of course, I'm fixing an injury, in which case it'd be a negative to forget doing the transfer. I think we're there. Do you want to give a quick shout out to our cash leagues and what have you?
Yes, shall do. So there are cash leagues available. There's a £20 league, £10 league, £5 league, £2 league. I'm limiting one league entry per person. So, I mean, if you want the code for the £5 league, you're more than welcome to pay £10 and put 2 teams in. But I'm not letting someone go into all 4 leagues. So just message me and say, which league do you want? You're more than welcome to put both teams into that particular league.
So can I go in all the leagues? You're in all the leagues.
You can, but you've got to pay for them. Plus, to be honest, in your case, I've got to because I'm the admin. You can go in because it just adds to the pot brilliantly for everybody else. There is an overall league for everybody, which is free to enter. Winner gets an invite onto the podcast next year. The pin is 8475785. There is a cash prize mini league for our patrons as well. The patrons, I'm sure, do know, but they can find that on the SkyFF channel. For the new players, if you've got any questions, something you don't understand about the rules or something, please don't hesitate to DM me. I will spend all the time in the world spending time with you, talking you through the rules and whatnots. If you send me a screenshot of your team and say, what do you think of this? I'm not going to like it because you've got the same decisions as me. I'm just going to send you back a screenshot of my own team. But if you don't understand some of the rules or something, yeah, jump in by all means.
Good. So yeah, as we get to the start of the season, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Planet FPL. And with our Patreon, you get access to a Slack, which has loads of channels talking about all the different teams. There's 400 fantasy managers of all formats of the game in there talking about all sorts of different things. It's really active, lively community. You'd also get additional podcasts every day of the week. And we also, well, apart from weekdays, every weekday, I should say. And we do additional Sky content from time to time on those as well. And you do get free entry into the Sky Prize League, and then there's some FPL leagues as well. So well worth having a look. It's patreon.com/Planet FPL. It'd be lovely to get to 500 patrons by the end of August, early September. So let's see if we can do that. And we'd love your support. Anything else to add, James?
No, that's it. I mean, when I say don't send me a screenshot, if you send me a screenshot of your team and say thoughts or not, but if you say to me, James, talk to me about Rafinha versus Harrison, I don't mind having that conversation with you.
Good. So everybody jump in James's DMs, but most importantly, stay safe.
Started a war.
Now for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck for the season. We'll be back next Wednesday. Cue music, please, man, child.